Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're very excited to be here with Carly. It's nice to see all of you here. Carly is going to be running us through creating an effective business plan. So thank you, Carly, for being here with us today. If you're ready to go, you can take it from here.
Perfect. Will do.
Great.
Thank you so much. Alrighty, so I'm just going to go ahead and is my screen up now or sorry,
You're good.
Perfect. Okay, now I just need to figure out how to see it. All right. So first things first, welcome to the WLC presenting the Creating an Effective Business Plan. I know some of you may have your own plans already or you're working through the template that we provided. So today is just to kind of walk you through an introduction to how to write it, how to fine tune it, and some key tips and points around the more structural or the more complicated portions of writing a business plan. So I'm just going to kind of click through here. So to introduce myself first, so you know who's speaking to you, my name is Carly Williams. I am currently an investment advisor with RBC Dominion Securities and events chair for the Women's Council in the Abbotsford Chamber of Commerce. Prior to working with RBC Dominion Securities as an investment advisor, I actually ran brick and mortar for a multinational sports industry or sports apparel company. So I have quite a bit of experience with writing business plans, looking through business plans, and trying to get the impossible approved. So I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I've learned, and we'll continue through it. So the first thing with business plans is, where do you start? I think that if you're looking at the template that we provided or any template, it can be a little bit overwhelming. It definitely feels like it's a massive document to dive into. So my tip is to just start. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but you want to start small, you want to start simple, and you want to start with what you know. So the hardest part is really gathering the information. And it's not whether or not you have a great idea. It's actually just where can you jump in? So my advice is to always look through the template, read it, and then go back, and anywhere that you thought, hey, I knew that one, or I know that bullet point, or I know exactly what my vision statement is, jump in there and start with something that you know. It doesn't have to go in order. It doesn't have to make sense off the hop. You just want to start plugging in bullet points. And soon enough, you're going to have halfway done before you even know you started. So that's my first tip, is just to jump in wherever you feel comfortable and start plugging away. The other big thing is, why do we need a business plan? I mean, the simple way to put it is that if you've got a path to follow, it's a lot easier to move forward on that path. So I've broken it into 5 main reasons that you would like to have a business plan, whether you're at a startup phase or you're at a position in your business where you're looking to expand, whether that's another location, an upgrade in equipment, hiring more people. You want to make sure that your business plan grows with you. It's going to be a living document, and you're going to change as you grow, as you adapt, as you kind of find your role within your business. And whether you are changing that, growing that, or bringing on people on board, you're going to adapt that business plan along the way. So the 5 main points here, kind of following what we did with our last event, is talking about acquiring funding. So with a business plan, acquiring funding is obviously a big one. So without a clearly defined business plan, it's hard to know what funding you need. And it's also hard to define why you need it. So once you know what you need, you'll be able to back it up with this business plan. So when you sit down with a banker or a grant giver or a financer or a parent or a friend who's going to be investing in your business, bringing out the business plan shows that you're prepared. It shows that you're professional, and it gives you a chance to shine competence on what you're about to present. It should be concise and engaging whilst remaining grounded in reality and research. If you have all those things, you shouldn't have a problem moving forward with acquiring funding. The second reason that we want a business plan is to reduce your risk. So anytime that you're going to start a business or get that idea off the ground, there's going to be there's risk involved, because you're taking that leap of faith. I always kind of like to equate it to an analogy of a vehicle. So if you're in a car, you know that it's going to get you from point A to B. It might be fast, it might be comfortable, it might be sleek and cool on the roads, but the risk of operating is vastly reduced when we have things like airbags, because it plans for impact. We have seat belts because it's planning for speedy maneuvers or uncontrollable conditions. We have warning bells and weather-specific tires because we're planning for ice or rain. We have all of these things embedded in our cars to reduce risk, and it should be the same way with a business plan. You can dream up a business idea or have a plan to scale or expand, but the risk is going to be taking on that failure. So to mitigate that risk, a business plan will make you walk through all the what ifs, all the hows, and all the whys that you're regularly going to face throughout your business expansion. If you're comfortable approaching those and you're comfortable looking at that whenever you revisit your plan, you're going to reduce the chances that you run into problems. So the more concise it is to begin with, and the more frequently you revisit it, the better off you'll be. It also increases your chance of success. So I think it was in the Journal of Business Venturing a couple of years ago, they reported a study where they looked at 11,000 different companies. And the more planning that the companies had in place, the faster growing and the more successful they were. I think they had a 30% increase in market share over their competitors if they had concise and regularly adapted business plans. So planning starts at the start. It's deemed important, obviously, because you're getting a start off, but it's actually more important as you're growing. So anytime that you scale or you add another location, you add partners, you bring in staff, etc., it's just as important as day one to make sure that that business plan is moving with you. The other one I think that's really important is defining a timeline. A business plan forces you to start thinking in real time. So often when we have a business idea or a dream for a future, expansion or a future plan that we want to take on, we kind of slot it into the one day category. So one day I'll do this, or one day I'll get this business off the ground, or one day I'll open a second location. We're human. We do that innately. We protect ourselves from feeling like we didn't meet a deadline. So if we set a deadline, well, now it means something. Now we've put that into reality. So when you define your timelines in your business plan, it's about taking it from the one day to the when. And you set targets, and it helps you achieve those milestones, initiatives, opening dates, funding needs, revenue goals, etc. And lastly, and I think this is probably, the one that most people kind of get hung up on, it's identifying the competition and opportunities in the market. So it's a pretty critical part of your business plan, and we're going to go into that a little bit more in depth later. But this helps you see opportunities in the market. So as an example, and we'll kind of use this example throughout, if you want to open a coffee shop, and you're looking around at the other coffee shops in your location. So if we're in Abbotsford and we think within the walking distance of where I want to open up, there's 3 or 4 other shops, but they all close at 3 or 4 p.m. Well, our opportunity is to maybe have an evening opening. That's where we're going to kind of look at the market, see what's out there, and figure out what opportunity we have to offer something slightly different or to fill a need. This kind of research or this market comparison will also inform your marketing plans in order to capitalize on the opportunity, but also to overcome the pain points. So for instance, if we're opening that coffee shop that has the evening hours, the first few months we might try to host evening open mic nights or corporate events, or include students to come in and do like a study night, because we're going to try to get that market knowledge out there and share with our communities that we are filling a gap that maybe they didn't even know they had. So by IDing the competition, the big one here is it's actually going to allow you to tell your banker or your account manager or whoever you're asking for funding, you're able to tell them why it matters that they do fund you. You're telling them why you're going to succeed by showing them that I don't just have an idea, I also have a place in this community or in this market because I've identified the opportunity. So those are the key reasons as to why you need a business plan. There's often far more, but I find these 5 are kind of the most important. So from here, I kind of want to just jump into the template I'm not going to go through every single bullet point on here with the template because some people, it won't apply to everybody. And you might have your own business plan that you're following along with. So I've just pulled out key sections that I think are really important, and we're going to kind of talk through them. So to begin with, the executive summary. It sounds scary. It's not. It's mostly just a chance for you to summarize everything else that's going to come up in the business plan. So we're going to go through, in terms of the template that we've provided, kind of your project. So if you wanted to open a warehouse or you need a new warehouse and you need funding for it, that's your main project. And then you're going to work through the simple and summarized version of what you're going to present throughout the rest of the business plan. So the tips here, concise language. So I've gotten here that you be clear, you be simple, and bullet points are your friend. Concise language is very important because when you're speaking to a banker or a funder of some sort, they might not know all the jargon in your particular field or industry. So try to cut some of the jargon out, try to keep it really to the point. We want to be clear and simple, and bullet points are perfectly fine. I think sometimes we get hung up on trying to have these beautiful paragraphs and full explanations, whereas if you're going in front of someone for the summary, bullet points, they know exactly what you're presenting. Being realistic. So this is an interesting one because I think sometimes a business is our baby and we want it to do really well. And that's very important. But we also want to make sure that the numbers that we're presenting don't get us into trouble. So when you're providing revenue targets and timelines for financing needs, you want to make sure that numbers are very easily tracked, that you can back them up, that you can speak to them, and they're grounded in research and experience. So going back to our coffee shop example, if I said, I'm going to make $400,000 in the first year because I'm planning on selling $11 coffees to 100 plus people a day, I would then need to go and explain and back up with research and understanding your experience that an $11 coffee is going to sell, and that's the market going rate locally. And I also need to prove that I have enough traffic on the location that I'm opening to sustain 100 plus patrons a day. If that doesn't seem feasible or you can't back that up, then you need to be more realistic with your numbers and what you're requesting and what you're projecting. The flip side to that is also asking what you need for what you need. I think we see quite often people coming in and asking for, let's say they've calculated out that they need 500,000 to get their project off the ground, but they ask for 400,000 because they think the request is more palatable and it's more likely to be approved. We do want to have confidence in asking for what we need. And if it doesn't get approved or it comes back slightly less, at least we asked for what we actually needed. It's remarkable how often we see people coming in and asking for far less than what they need to get the thing that they want off the ground, which segues nicely into being confident. I think it's your idea, it's your business, it's your baby. You should be really proud of that. Most businesses or most business ideas don't even get past the dreaming stage. So the fact that you've got a business plan, you've got a conviction, and you're going in there and asking for funding, that's huge, and you should be really proud of that. So going in, proud of your idea with enthusiasm for what you're pitching, and preparedness is going to do wonders, because at the end of the day, if you're going in to pitch a business plan, whether that's to a partner or an investor, they're really investing in you. Yes, the idea, but in you. And if you've got the ability to convey what you want to achieve and you come off confident and excited and prepared for it, that's going to do more than just having a really sharp looking business plan and then no confidence about it. So I'm just going to pause there for a second and ask if there are any questions so far. And I can't see anyone, so if Sam's still on here, maybe she can let me know if anyone's put up a hand.
No hands are up.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to keep on trucking. So I pulled this section out of the template because I do think we get hung up on this, especially if you're in a startup phase where you have to list all your key people and what they're going to do. It's okay to not know who they are yet. You just need to start to define what those people are going to do in terms of roles and what like experiences or responsibility or education you need that person to have in order to successfully deliver on that role. So in here, I've put in defining your current directors and partners. At startup, sometimes this is just you, and that's totally okay. This can change, this can grow, this doesn't have to be forever, but having yourself listed in there. Secondly, then start outlining any expected roles or hires that you're going to have to do. So what positions are you hiring for? What do you expect those roles to mean? What are they going to be doing daily? What are they going to be doing long term? And then you want to start to think about the experiences and responsibilities that you're going to be hiring for. So what skills, expertise, education are you going to find in the community to fill those roles? So I always kind of tell people, when you start to do this, if it's just you at the beginning, or you and one other partner, or you and someone who's investing in you, identify what you're really strong at. So if we look at that coffee shop and I say, hey, I'm so good at making coffees and I love people management and I'm great at training, well, then I might need to hire someone to maybe do back of house if that's not my strong suit. So identify what you're good at, identify what you're missing, and then hire to fill those gaps. If you're able to do that in a business plan where you come prepared, you'll never get stuck with that question where they say, well, who's going to do your marketing? Or how are you going to get this out? It's like, well, I'm hiring for that. And that's the position I'm going to be filling because that's not my strong suit. And it's totally okay to own that. And it will go a long way to show that you've thought about the different roles that will need to happen in order for you to scale. So jumping in to business overview. So this is the one I think, for some reason, anytime I've sat down with an individual who wants to build out a business plan, this is where they get hung up, because we often are told that this is where we start. We start with a mission, a vision, and values, and it can be really overwhelming to suddenly try to distill everything that you want to accomplish and everything that your business stands for you into these 3 sections. So my goal today is to try to kind of simplify it and to encourage you to come back to this maybe halfway through. Because once you're kind of in the mentality of building out a business plan and you're filling in the bullet points and you're really thinking about who you are and what you want your business to look like, that's when the mission, vision, and values will feel the most accessible. You'll be able to get to those statements without, putting your head through a wall trying to rack your brain to figure it out. So it does not have to be perfect. It does not need to be stagnant. It can change. And the idea behind your business and what is, driving you should be what informs your mission, vision, and values. So let's just simplify a little bit. We'll go look at the mission. For instance, sticking with the coffee shop example, I always say figure out what, how, and why you do what you do right now. So currently, what, how, and why do you do what you do? So if we're thinking about the coffee shop, the what, let's say it's going to be a cozy, sophisticated aesthetic with a warm atmosphere, where we want our patrons to relax, connect with the community, and caffeinate. That's our what. The how, we're going to make artisanal coffee drinks to order, and we're going to provide locally sourced food in support of Canadian farmers, producers, and manufacturers. And the why, we're going to support a vibrant community. We're in Abbotsford. We want to support that community when it needs a pick-me-up or caffeination, whether it needs a place to gather, and when our patrons need a moment to unwind. So if we bring those things together, we can kind of start to craft a mission. So for example, I've put in here for the coffee shop, providing a curated and locally sourced cafe experience that encourages individuals to gather, relax, and charge. So we've got our what, our how, and our why in that mission. Does anyone have any of their own mission statements that they'd like to workshop, or they'd like to state out loud, or if they've had any hard times working through a mission? No, okay, I will just continue on. So then looking at vision. So the vision is a little bit different than your mission because it's looking at long-term or larger or like a more impactful scale. So often we look at vision statements as something that's going to be an aspirational global impact. It doesn't have to make a global change. You don't have to change the world. You can stick locally, depending it. You just kind of want to scale it to fit your business. And there's two kinds of vision statements, really. There's a concept vision or a quality-based vision. So the concept-based vision is going to kind of state what the company or what your business wants to achieve in the future in terms of impact. Whereas a quality-based vision is going to tie that aspiration to company culture and internal goals. So if we think about the coffee shop, and we're going to do a concept-based vision. So again, this is our impact and what we hope to achieve. It might be hard to imagine what a small coffee shop might be able to do in terms of changing the world. So then I always recommend you to scale it down and simplify. So what's the real overall broad goal? Well, to spread joy with every sip of coffee. There's my concept-based vision, just to spread joy with every sip of coffee. It doesn't have to be very specific, and it doesn't have to be, overwhelming. The goal here is to kind of provide a vision that your employees or yourself can look at and say, hey, did we do that? And are we doing that? Are we spreading joy? Great, we're hitting our vision. The quality-based vision is a little bit more specific to staff, or to how you want to run your internal business. So it can be often a little bit more wordy. So I've got an example here: to be the most sought after space to gather, relax, recharge through provision of superior coffee, warm aesthetics, and an unwavering commitment to supporting local producers. So it's basically, you're going to check your actions against that. Are we providing a great space to gather? Are we making superior quality coffee? And are we still absolutely committed to making sure that we're locally sourcing our goods and products? If you're doing that, then you're meeting your vision. And then let's go to values. So values, I think, are one of those ones where I think it's really important. If you've got your values, it'll be really easy for you to make sure that you build a great company culture, because it's something that should be ingrained in all staff, all suppliers, all patrons. This is who you are. This is what you stand by. And the best way to do that is really just to brainstorm words. So think of words that would resonate with you, but also resonate with what you want to experience when you walk into that coffee shop, or you have a patron come into your business. And then distill it down. And you always want to have less than 10 words. More than that, and it gets far too wordy. And then you want to pick the simplest form of those words. So for instance, if we're thinking about this coffee shop where our goal is to, make everyone, to spread joy with every sip, and we want it to be a relaxing and comfortable space for a community to gather, the words that come to mind would be, say, community, inclusivity, quality, sustainability, and maybe ambiance, because we want to create that aesthetic space. So then you can kind of list them out and say, we want to build community, we want to be respectful, we want to promote inclusivity, we believe in quality over quantity, we want to source sustainably, and we want to create ambiance. Those now become your values, and everything going forward should be fact-checked against those. Anyone that you hire should fit in with that kind of culture. Any experience or interaction that you have with the public, with a customer, with a supplier, with etc., you should be following those values to the T. So that is kind of the tips and tricks to get through mission, vision, and values. It's mostly just to distill it down, simplify, and really try to work through the what, the how, the why, the long-term impact, and then keywords that really kind of back up what you believe in. So the other section that I jumped into here for working along, just kind of checking where we are in the business plan template. So this is all in the business overview section. And this one, I think, is one of the ones that I don't want to say gets forgotten, but I do think that often it doesn't come out as concise or as research-based as it can be. And the more you do in this section, the more prominence you're going to have and the more conviction you're going to have when you sit down with someone to ask for lending. Because at the end of the day, a financial institution that's going to lend you, let's say, $1 million, they're expecting to have a return on that investment. They're expecting you to be able to pay that off. And a lot of it's going to come down to how you compete within the market that you're opening your location or you're starting your business. So the kind of clear things here, I've just kind of 4 points are in the template as well that I kind of want to walk through is you want to research your target demographic. With your target demographic, you want to be very specific, especially in the location that you're opening. So if your target demographic is university students, you want to make sure your location is accessible by transit, by bike, by walking, say, from a campus. You want to make sure that your target demographic is in the location that you want to open up. You want to make sure that you've researched the likelihood of them finding what your services or offerings are. And with that, you kind of want to make sure that you're also looking seasonality. So if you're in an area that tends to have an older population that take off for the winter, is it going to be sustainable for you to have a year-round business if your target demographic isn't there? If you have a seasonally specific product, let's say you are selling snow shovels and salt, and we get snow for a week per year, is that something that's going to make sense for you? You want to make sure that your target demographic is well researched before you start to pitch, because it will be the make or break whether or not you can sustain your business. Next, going into that is products and services. You need to identify your specific services or offerings in terms of what you're bringing to the table. The more detailed you can be here in a business plan is going to provide the financer or the partner, whatnot, with a belief in what you are peddling. So if you just say, I'm going to sell coffee, it doesn't really narrow it down because lots of places sell coffee. What makes you different? What's your niche? What's your drive? What's going to bring a customer in for that specific coffee? And going into that with the competition. So the competition is going to be, you want to look for direct competition and indirect competition. So you're going to look at the location that you want to open and you're going to survey the area. That might be walking up and down Main Street, maybe doing a Google search for everywhere that serves coffee. You want to make sure that you know the ins and outs of what's happening around you and what businesses are out there to kind of take your market share and what you're trying to gain over them. You want to ID them, and then you want to figure out what your competitive advantage is. So I'm going to kind of give you a bit of a story to back some of this up. So as I mentioned before, I used to do, I worked for a multinational outdoor sporting goods company, and we would open locations all over North America. And in order to get the CapEx or the funding to do so, I would build a business plan that would explain why we want to open in whatever location. So, for example, we wanted to open up a location in Park City, Utah. And in order to do so, we needed to prove that we would be able to outcompete the people that are there, or we'd at least be able to get our market share and be profitable. So, went to Utah, went to Park City, and I made a list of every direct competition and every indirect competition. And by that I mean, if our business is specifically for ski gear, I'm going to look at any company that is selling ski gear, and I look at them as direct competition. If I look at indirect competition, I would look at any company that sells warm weather gear, so jackets or parkas. Maybe that's going to take a portion of our market share. And in this day and age, a lot of the time, the indirect competition is Amazon or Temu or Shein. It's where we're going to lose our business to. So making sure that you identify all of that. Then what I would also do is I would look at the demographics of that area, and I would figure out, okay, if our main demographic for the ski company that we were opening is ages 35 to 45, male and female, who have a household disposable income of over 200,000, I would then need to start finding that data. how do I do that? We did surveys. We hired data companies. We did it ourselves. You want to make sure that you understand, are your target audience in the area? Can you outcompete what's around you? And do your services or products match the need of that location? So my job was always to try to find that. It gives financiers some confidence that you'll be able to repay your loans. It also believe that you'll be successful if you can start to prove where you're going to fit in and how you're going to make it work. All of this research that you'll be doing in order to kind of identify this will inform your marketing. So not all of us are born with a marketing mindset. Some people are far more talented than others. It's also one of those things that can be a little bit tricky when we're dealing with specific markets versus specific demographics. So I've put in here that expand on what we brainstormed previously. So if you've gone through and looked at your market, who's around you, who you're competing with, who your demographic is, you'll have an idea of how to connect with them. So for instance, when we talk about target market, age is huge. So if your target market is under 50, well, then you can probably utilize social media or direct to consumer targeted Facebook, Instagram, those kinds of ads. Whereas if your target market is over the age of 50, that might not have the same sort of traction. Maybe that's more of a radio ad, or maybe that's newspaper print, or maybe that's door knocking. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can get in contact with your consumer, but you have to know who your consumer is before you start throwing marketing out that way. Looking at return on investment. So marketing can be free or it can be extremely expensive, depending on how you want to do that. The goal here is that you want to understand that if you were to do whatever you do for marketing, it has to generate sales, or it has to generate some revenue for you. So when you're presenting this in your business plan, you want to have an idea of what you would spend, how you would spend that, and then what you would expect the turn rate to be, or what you expect to have it as a return of that investment. So one of the ways I like to look at this as a really simple thing is if you said, okay, my target demographic is 20 to 25-year-olds who are in the area studying let's say 19 to 25-year-olds who are university students and studying, and they look for maybe a late night spot that they can, cram and hit the books. Well, then what I would maybe suggest is you look at marketing via social media, you track it for a certain number of weeks, months, and you see if there's a return. Does that go up in sales? Did it drop in sales? Put out some sort of code that you can track in your systems. You want to make sure that you've got your marketing is something that you can track. There's a KPI attached to it to make sure that you are doing what you have set out to do, because we don't want to just throw money at it and hope that it works. The other thing is, I said rinse and repeat here, but I think once you've got a marketing plan in place, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. If you are going to take out a quarterly newspaper ad, or you're going to, push a social media agenda once a month, you want to make sure that you're consistent with that and that you're able to replicate it. If it works, replicate it. Don't reinvent the wheel. But in your business plan, you want to kind of build out, what's your plan for marketing? What do you think is going to work? How are you going to test that it works? And what's your repeatability? The operating plan. So the operating plan is kind of the nuts and bolts of it. And this is one of the ones that I think is both easy, and we can all kind of dump our minds into it and fill all the bullet points out, but that's where you want to be really concise with your numbers, especially if you're going to financing for things. So operating plan, the location, provide the address. I don't know why people don't sometimes. They just say they're going to be in this town. Figure out exactly where you want to be. With that in mind, consider your operation hours. So for instance, if you were like me, where I was opening up stores North America wide, every now and then we'd have one that was in a mall. Well, we had parameters about our hours and our holidays and what we could and couldn't open for based on the mall. So you want to make sure that whatever location you pick fits with your operation. And then always presenting whether or not it's ownership or rent and what those terms are in terms of a mortgage or in terms of what your lease stipulates. Include that in your business plan, especially when you're meeting with financiers, because it gives them the backbone that they need in order to make the case to grant you credit. Equipment and technology, again, coming down to whether or not you're going to own it, rent it, or lease it, what that's going to cost, whether that's going to be something that you need long-term or short-term, and also say it's heavy equipment. Do you need specific insurances or licensing in order to operate them, to use them, to have them on or off site? You want to make sure you've got all that information in your business plan. Mostly because, like I said, if you sit down with a financer who maybe doesn't understand the specifics of your industry, the real nuanced bits, this gives them the snapshot so that, again, they can make the business case for you when they go to apply for your credit. When you're looking at outfitting your space or location, so for instance, let's think of a hair salon. You're going to need to input sinks, you'll need mirrors, you'll need chairs, you'll need to outfit it to be a large open space, you'll need a public bathroom. All these things need to be kind of built out in your equipment, technology, and your outfitting of your location. Technology needs, this goes beyond having a computer. You want to make sure you've got till space, you've got your data storage, and that one of the ones that a lot of people seem to miss is security. So do you need to have cameras? Do you need to have alarms? Probably. Building that out there as well, because it does take up quite a bit of funds sometimes, and it also does need maintenance and servicing. So building all of that out into your plan shows that you've got an idea on how you're going to spend your funding, how you're going to spend your revenue in order to keep your business afloat, what kind of costs or equipment and technology you're going to incur. So build that out into your business plan under the operations or the operating plan. And lastly, looking at regional and environmental compliance. So I know that permits is a dirty word, and it's hard for anyone that's ever tried to open a location or build out or do what you need to do. Permits and inspections, regulations, everything that is municipal or provincial, federal, it's a lot. So employing some sort of legal advice often is a good thing. If not, working with your realtor or the person who's helping you with your rent or your leasing is also generally a good source of information for that. But figuring it out beforehand is good. I can give you an example of, we opened a store in Quebec. At the time, they had just abolished all packaging. So that's store bags, anything that was packaging that was not 100% sustainable and recyclable, but they had some interesting stipulations on it. So some of our bags that had a red print on it they weren't approved. We couldn't do that because it couldn't be recycled in the same way due to printing and due to the way that the handles were built onto it. So we opened and had about a month before we had full packaging to send patrons home with their bags full of jackets. So making sure that you know all that information well before so that you don't get caught in a situation like we did. So making sure that that's all lined out, again, will help your financier understand or your partners understand that you are really, really committed to understanding how to operate within your location. So do that research. If you can't find it, reach out to your renter, your tenant, or it's not your tenant, your landlord, anything like that might be specific to your lease agreement. So then lastly, the project objectives. So this was the part of the business plan that's really going to try to get your financing for the immediate need. And I said it's getting down to business because now you've kind of built your case, you've proven your worth, you've explained what you know about your business and what you know in terms of your experience and your conviction that's going to be successful. Now's your chance to kind of proof in the pudding, throw the numbers out there and ask what you want. So you need to define in simple terms, what do you want to accomplish and what is your timeline? So if my goal is to acquire a warehouse and have it operational for distribution and holding by, let's say, summer, that's my timeline, that's my goal. I then need to present the financials on what I think that's going to cost. So let's say my rent of that warehouse, my configuration of that warehouse, the outfitting of it, the staffing for it, and then the acquiring of, let's say, forklifts and shelving and all that jazz. I need to know exactly what that's going to cost. From that, I'm going to say, okay, it's going to cost me $200,000 to do this. I can put up $20,000 of my personal funds, so I need $180,000 in financing. You want to really, really dial down exactly where those numbers are coming from and what you need. And you want to be able to prove it. So if you've got quotes and you've got other locations or comparables, that's really the way you want to do that. And then looking at setbacks and potential bumps in the road. So often I've seen people present where they don't put this in, and it doesn't really allow the creditor or the finance writer to stress test you because they feel like you haven't thought about it. So going in there and say, okay, you know what, like the tariffs might really set me back a little bit in getting a hold of specific materials that I need to get this off the ground. Or, we've had a really rough winter and I'm worried that that's going to hold up my construction. Finding out what those bumps could look like and the potential setbacks, listing them, and then listing a way to deal with it, or what your backup plan is, or what your contingency or plan B, whatever you want to call it, shows that you've thought about it, shows that you're prepared for it, and shows that it will not derail you. So having that in there, I highly recommend. And then lastly, an action plan. This is really a to-do list, and you're going to build out individual items, like an itemized list on how you're going to get from today to opening that warehouse in the summer, and what that means, who's going to do each job, when that due date is, and you're going to track it. If you've got multiple people on your team, this is a really great way to delegate. And then it's just a go-to-market. Like, you have a plan, you have a deadline, it has to get done. And some things on those lists can't get done until previous ones do. So you can't have an inspection come until your warehouse is fully outfitted. So making sure that you're sticking to those deadlines and that you have a clear path forward is huge. But your action plan should be as detailed as possible. So that's the sections I wanted to take you through that I find that we do have some hangups, or often people kind of get a little bit overwhelmed with them, feel a little bit like they're not sure where to start. So that's what I wanted to take you through today. And then I wanted to jump into some questions. So I'm just going to I'll try to get out of this screen and see if I can switch back to camera. Alrighty, can everyone see me now? Or am I still on the screen? Perfect. Okay, so are there any questions about what we went through today? Questions about your own business plan? Questions about how to write it, how to start, where to jump in? You're on mute, Stephanie, but go ahead.
Yes, hello. I'm just curious when you were talking about the numbers and the sort of market research for things. So whether you're going to do a coffee shop or a childcare center or a gym, or they're all going to have different numbers and revenues that you're looking at. So how do you go about initially doing the research to find what those numbers could be like, so you know what you need?
So I think for that, like, you won't be able to uncover other revenues generally. I mean, if they're public, some of it will be, but generally what you want to do is your numbers are going to be looking at who are you in competition with. So if I'm opening a daycare center, I'm going to look at, okay, where are the main communities at that will need this? So if there are, let's say, 4 suburbs within walking distance or within, a short drive of where I want to open up my daycare location, I'm going to look at, say, 15 minutes in every direction around me and see how many daycare centers they are. Then I might call those daycare centers and see if they have openings. Nope, they're fully booked. So that means there's a real demand and supply issue. So my opportunity is to open new spaces because all the other ones are full. Then maybe my market research is I go on some of the mom pages on Facebook and I find out, what are the pain points of the daycares that people are currently dealing with? Is it hours? Do they not open early enough? Do they not stay open late enough? And is it cost? Is it getting multiple children in? Is it a wait list? What are the pain points, and what can I do when I open my business to make sure that I'm covering those pain points to give myself that boost up? And then if you can identify saying, you know what, I think that I can operate with 10 children and I'll have my 2 ECEs come in. What am I going to charge per head? What am I going to, so what is my revenue forecast? If I've got 10 children in one location, what's my revenue? And then I work backwards and say, okay, what's it going to be to rent this space? What's it going to cost to have 2 ECEs on full time? You know, am I going to be providing lunches? What's the cost of the food that I'm providing? Work all those numbers backwards so that you can start to provide a revenue, a cost, and then your net profit. Any other questions at all? Tara, go ahead.
Hi. To me, this feels like a chicken and egg situation, but I'm wondering about funding versus having a location, because I can't secure a location until I have funding.
Yes, so it's one of those cart before the horse, horse before the cart situations. That's not unusual.
Okay.
So what I would suggest you do there is you would build up the plan as to why you want that location. Go check out some of the realtor listings, print them out so you have an idea of what the cost will be in that kind of area.
Okay.
Obviously, we get our heart set on one location that we love, and sometimes it gets swooped up from under us. It's happened before, and it is not fun. But what you want to do is pick a couple different locations and have an idea of what that's going to cost. Then back up how you want to support that cost. So if you need funding for it, some mortgage or a cash influx from a friend or whoever's going to help you, you want to then back up how you're going to pay that off. But it doesn't have to have like, this is the only address that I want to open at. It just has to have an idea so that the creditor, the financer can see that, okay, you didn't just pull a number out of air that you're going to spend $1,000 a month on rent. Like, no, it's going to cost $3,500 and here's 4 locations that back that up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions at all? No. All right. Well, I was hoping we'd have about 30 minutes of questions, but I'm thinking we probably won't. But what I can do after, I'm more than happy to I'll send out an email and everyone can get in contact with me if you do have any other questions. If you would like to be put in contact with anyone that can do a credit review, like a financing review for you, happy to set that up as well. There's no pressure. They're just happy to talk. But yeah, I think that's everything for me. Oh, I'm just seeing the chat here. No.
Thanks so much, Carly, for walking us through making a business plan and giving us the tips and tricks and the things, the considerations that financiers are looking for a complete and wholesome business plan to be successful.
Yeah.
This is part of this workshop was a part of our Women's Network, Women's Leadership Committee event series. This was following one of our events about accessing capital. So we do have a full year of really fun and exciting events. We have one coming up for International Women's Day week, where we're going to be talking about prioritizing energy and really reshaping how we think about where we put our resources in. And it's going to be really, really great. And we highly recommend that you check out the event page, and it'll be facilitated by 2 wonderful ladies from Pebble, and they're going to be really changing the way that we think about how we resource ourselves, and how we think about time and space and energy. And with that, I wanted to say thank you, and that this will be recorded and will be made available on the Abbotsford Chamber website under our member knowledge share. And it will be available for all members. And if you're not a member, I highly recommend that you reach out to Sam Palmer, our business engagement manager, and she will be able to tell you all the great ways that the Chamber can support you in your business.